at the session about a week and a half ago where we had technical problems. Thank you for your patience and for joining us. We will absolutely get to the SAM reports, and we will cover them in detail. I did check SAM. I logged in. It did work about 15 minutes ago, so fingers crossed. For the folks that are joining us and you were not on the session earlier this month, we had some technical issues with SAM, so whereas we went through the presentation, we're not able to pull the actual report. So for those that have heard the presentation before, think about some great questions, have a little patience, and we'll delve into the subject matter here. One other disclaimer that I want to mention as we start getting into the material. If it feels like this is in the weeds, it is very much in the weeds. The SAM ad hoc reports are based on contracting database. They are detailed incremental level reporting. I do not recommend this for beginners or new to government contracting. If you are still exploring, trying to get your feet wet and getting a hold of all the acronyms, I recommend starting with USA Spending as a resource. And we do have a recorded training on USA Spending that we did a month or two ago, and that is on YouTube, and you could access it to get a feel for this world of contracting. However, the point of the training today is to demystify SAM.gov reporting. So I will try to get to as many questions as I can, and I will try to go slowly and bring you along so that you do understand what the database is, what it can do for you, and how it could help in your government contract business development efforts. So we will do it both methods here. So first, I will show you exactly what to expect with the presentation, the slides, which you will have available. Slides will be sent to you following the session. And then we'll also do a live report, so you'll see exactly how to pull it together, what to expect, and what it looks like. The slides do have the screenshots, so even if you are not able to remember everything we learned, you'll have the recording and you will have the screenshots to go back to. So what we're going to do today is just briefly, I'll cover the maps and the links and how to get to this area of SAM.gov. We have covered in a prior session searching opportunities and standard reports in SAM. That was the January class, so I won't spend too much time on that. And today we'll go into the ad hoc reports, what they are, how to set up the criteria, and how to pull up the report dashboard so that you could access the reports that you have created. So for reference, we are going to be on SAM.gov, the system for award management. That system, which became live about 4 or 5 years ago, is intended to aggregate a number of federal contracting data sources and some other federal data sourcing sources beyond contracts as well. For our purposes, we will be talking about the contract reports, so that is prime contract reports on obligations. So every time that a federal agency changes, modifies, awards, pays, deobligates a contract, there's going to be a line item, and we'll see exactly how to get to it and how to pull it up, and how to pull up the ones that are relevant to you and your business. Right. Other options here, the help button, the workspace, and the reports. These are just some shortcuts for you to go back to for ease of navigation. So what we're going to do today, if I haven't mentioned it, I apologize. If you have a question, please type it into the Q&A section, and we'll try to answer it as it goes, if possible. If I need to stop and clarify something, if I need to stop and answer a question, then Curtis or Wendy will interrupt me, tell me to hold on a second, and we'll address it. So if it's something more general or that could wait until the end of a section, it'll wait. If it's something could be answered in Q&A by typing, then Wendy and Curtis will do that. And guys, please interrupt me if I need to stop and answer. And I will try to remember to pause as well. I think I saw a hand up.
That was me by mistake.
All right, excellent. We're awake. All right, so I will show you the steps we're going to take, then we're going to go live and do those steps. So first, on sam.gov. Now, this operation, this reporting function does require you to be logged into SAM. You could create a login, or you should create a login for your company regardless. If you're pursuing federal contract, you must be registered on SAM. And this is the same database or the same site collection that you will use for your entity registration as well. Once you're signed in, you will see several different options in the top right or top left menu. And today we're going to focus on the data bank section. You go into the data bank. What you will see as a default is this standard reports. You'll see the radio button for standard selected. We talked about standard reports in the January session when we went over the basic searches and the standard report. So feel free to refer to that on YouTube. Today, we're going to look at ad hoc. So here's what's going to happen. If you check the box or check the radio button for ad hoc, at the bottom of the main page, you see where it says standard reports, this information will change. Instead, what you're going to see is, as you look down, scroll down, you will see these two options. You'll have award IDV reports and other transaction report. We're going to talk about award IDV reports. Other transactions are, just for curiosity's sake, are non-FAR based obligations and transactions, so mostly used for research and development and prototyping. The Department of Veterans Affairs does not do OTAs. I'm not an expert in OTAs. However, we will delve into the award IDV in finite detail. If you want to look at OTAs, you're more than welcome to. You will be able to click on the blue text for either one of them and explore. So if you click on the award IDV reports, you will get access to a new window will open, which will let you create and filter a report. Right. So before we get to the next section, any questions, anything for me, Curtis or Wendy?
None in the Q&A right now.
All right, excellent. I see a couple of folks in the chat asking if you need to log into SAM. So you don't need to follow along. It depends on your learning style, but in order to get to the reports, in order to access them, yes, you will need a SAM login of your own. All right. So I see some people being unable to log into SAM. I hope this is not a repeat performance of the last time we tried this. I'm going to be optimistic here. All right. So you clicked on award/IDV. You will see this window pop up. Now, this part where you see the 3 reports listed, this will be blank for you. If you have never done it before, you won't have any reports. Since I have created reports, they will show up here. So what we're going to do is create a report, and at the end of it, you'll have at least one line item listed. So if you click on the create button, you will see a pop-up that says new report, blank, or report builder. We're going to create the report builder because it'll make our lives a lot easier. And we're going to build a report, and I will walk you through the building blocks. For those of you that were here the previous week, this should be a good review. And if you've had a chance to play with it since, and if you have any questions, please please pop them into Q&A, and we'll try to be as specific in answering those questions and addressing those issues as possible. All right. So the first set of information we're going to talk about are the dates. I'm going to spend a little bit of time here, even though it seems intuitive, it may not actually be intuitive. So as I mentioned earlier, the reports that we are accessing, those line items, are activated or are put into the system every time there's an action on a contract. And the date sign that we're referring to is the date that that action is executed. So let's say you were awarded a contract in January of 2020, and you were paid in January of 2024. The date of that action, the date that action was signed to pay you the money, would be January 2024. Now, there is also an action for January 2020. So every time that a contracting officer touches a contract, does something to it, there is a line item for it. And the date signed is for those individual actions. So when you're thinking about the dates, you may want to know, for example, all of the landscaping contracts at the Department of Veterans Affairs between the year 2019 and 2024. You'll want everything with the date signed between those times because you don't really care when the contract was awarded. What you want to know is what has the government paid money for? When have they paid for landscaping services? And each one of those line items is going to come with a plethora of information, including the completion date or the expiration date, which will tell you when that contract expires. So you don't need to guess when it was awarded in order to find out when the expiration date is. For those asking about copies of the presentation, yes, the recording will be available and the slides will be sent out to everybody that registered or that attended. All right, so moving on from the dates, and what you'll see is we'll follow this list here. This is our table of contents in defining and setting up the report. One other important fact here or logistic element is do not use the browser's back buttons. Use the back and forward arrow.
You kind of went out for a second. Give us 1 second, everyone.
My computer did something weird.
Okay, sounds like you're back, Anna.
All right, yes, I am back. I'm sorry, something happened to my computer. And I am sharing my screen too. All right, okay. You could see me and hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, sorry about that. I'm working from the office today, so some gremlin in the system. All right. So having figured out the dates, what we're going to do is look at the next set of criteria and kind of follow along here. We don't need to worry about the modified dates because it's just not that incremental level of information is just not that useful as we're trying to build the report. So the next we're going to set up the criteria they're called attributes. They choose the attributes of the report. So think of that as the columns. When eventually you're going to get the spreadsheet, each of the attributes that we select will be the heading of a column that will contain the useful information for you. And the attributes include, for example, with the business size selection, it'll be the contracting officer size description. You could have funding information like funding department name, the type of contract, the type of small business, or the type of business, period. You could have product service codes, NAICS codes, geographic areas, places of performance. And each of these folders will contain the relevant information criteria that you could select. I will show you how to do that exactly, but basically you double click on this folder, and in the right-hand column or the right-hand panel, the components of that column will be made available to you. After we select the criteria, we figure out what kind of information we want displayed. The next set of criteria, very specific criteria, are the metrics. Those are the numbers. So there is the base and all options value, or the total contract value. My favorite one is the dollars obligated, which is at the level of those specific transactions, how much money is being obligated. Whereas the base and all options value should remain static. That's the ceiling value of the contract. That should be the same throughout performance. It can sometimes change, but usually doesn't. The dollars obligated indicate the exact amount that the government entity is either paying the vendor or sometimes deobligating from a contract. For example, we thought something would cost $5,000, it only costs $4,000. We are deobligating that extra $1,000. So the reason that you don't see the specific information on the business size selection is I selected those values from a couple of different folders. So some of it is from the funding, some of it is from contract description. That's just to give you an idea of what would come up in the right-hand screen. So with the dollars, or with the metrics, I recommend, as you can see on the right, these following four selections. Dollars obligated, base and all options value, that's the total ceiling value. Base and exercise option value, that is useful, but it is not always accurate. So it is useful because if the government updates it properly, it should give you a running total, right? If the contract was awarded, then there was one payment, then there was a second payment, and now we're putting in a third payment. The base and exercised options value should be the sum of payments so far. However, what I see is a copy of either current obligation or a copy of total of base and all options. So it's just not that valid or not that consistent. The number of actions is interesting because it'll tell you how many times something happened to this contract. So how many times there was a payment or a modification or an award. It adds up every time there's an action on this specific contract, and you get the sum total. After we select all the attributes, right? The columns, the metrics, which will also be the columns. Those will be the columns at the very right, the very end of your spreadsheet. We're able to qualify the criteria. So what you'll see lower down on the setup are the same areas or the same headings as you saw a little bit earlier, but instead of folders, they are now associated with different symbols. And what we're able to do is qualify or filter this criteria. For example, one of the choices in business size selection was small business or contracting officer size determination. We could, now basically what that means is, did the contracting officer determine that the business was small or other than small? What we could do is filter so that only contracts where small business size selection equals small are included. That way, all the contracts you will see will just be to small businesses. Another filter that I commonly use is by department. If I only want to know what the Department of Veterans Affairs spent, I will filter it by funding agency or funding department. You could also filter it by a certain NAICS code if you wish, or any other criteria. For example, all the contracts awarded in the state of Kentucky, or all the contracts awarded in FY23. You can certainly do it that way. And that is a little bit of a tricky process, very easy to do, but it will you'll have to see it to see how it works. So we'll go through that. Basically, if you click on the arrow, you select an attribute to filter on or to qualify on. Here's one that I have completed, and here's one that I haven't completed yet. So when you select, for example, that you want to qualify your results on funding department, you will see this: funding department name, qualify, form equals value. Now, this doesn't make any sense, and that's okay. What we're able to do here is, and these are all clickable. If it's blue or red, it's clickable. So qualify means put in specific information. So you could start typing in a department. If you click on qualify, you'll be able to, instead of putting that in, you'll be able to click on select, and the form will change from a form where you put in the information. It'll change to ID, and you'll be able to choose. So select means choose from a drop-down list or from a box full of lists. And then equals, you'll be able to select one with a certain value based on that list. So I promise it will make more sense when we go through it live. But this is a good refresher for you that you could of how to perform this function. So you just select the qualify, and then you step through that. And we'll do that live, and then you'll have the example to follow. Right? Once we filter or qualify on the attributes here, there is also an option to qualify based on metrics. I do not like that option. I do not recommend that option. Most of the time when I messed up a report, it was because of this. So unless you have so many results that you need to narrow it down by certain dollar value, I would recommend this as a last option. Obviously, the functions work the same way, or kind of the same way. You have to pick one of those that you want to qualify it on and then select. So if it's dollars obligated, you could do greater than equal to $0 or $1,000 or something like that. And default would be leave it at default. It also has a report level, and I do not know what the difference is. It's just this has been a challenging section of the report, so I try not to mess with it. And I am being candid with you as a user of the report, not as somebody that works for the agency that created it. So hopefully some practical advice. Then don't forget to save it and pick a specific name. You will hopefully be creating lots of reports, and the more specific the name, including some dates, the easier it'll be for you to remember what you did. Then you'll click on run the report.
Question.
Yes.
Someone said that they're not able to see the same information under the business size selection.
Right. So what I did here is I gave some examples of different boxes. So this information is based on different boxes, not just business size selection. So as you click through it, you'll be able to add these. And actually, what I have done here, these are some of my favorite things. These are the ones the attributes that I select on almost every report. So just a shortcut for you guys. But no, the business size selection does not have all of these. The contracting officer's business size determination is what comes from this box. Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. All right. So then we run the report. And one thing I will say is, as we're going through this, especially the first time around, if you're taking your time, you will get timed out. It'll give you an error, and it'll say something like rerun, and you do the rerun, and it will work fine on the second time around. You will also be able to save the report at that point. So before we go to the dashboard, what I'd like to do is, one, pause for questions, and two, do this live and go through the process, and then we'll look at the results. So Wendy, any other questions for me to address?
No, I don't see any more. Oh, wait, one just came in. It says two questions. One, I want to extract a report that shows awarded amounts and project scope, such as the square feet or ACER. And then they said the second one is every time I run the report, I get an error.
Okay. So not sure what the error is. It could be that there's too many entries. It could be that you have selected it so finely that there are no results. So we probably have to set up a time separately to go through your specific report and figure out what the issue is. And the first one, I'm sorry, awarded amount and specific criteria. Okay, so the awarded amount, we could definitely do. The criteria is a little bit tricky, but I'll show you what's available. All right, so logged into SAM. I'm just going to start from the beginning here. So logged into SAM, go to Databank, and click on ad hoc. Actually, let me make this a little bit bigger. I'm going to click on ad hoc reports. And then as I scroll down this main page, we'll see the award ID info report. Right? This opens a new, this opens a new tab. And as I mentioned, I have a whole bunch of reports that I've done. I'm not going to worry about any of them, and we're going to create a new one. So again, make this bigger for visibility. So create new report, report builder. I'm going to select the dates. So I'll show you an interesting math, a formula that it allows us to do. So if I start here, and you don't have to do it this way, but if I start with the last full fiscal year, so it ended on September 30, 2023. Now, see above, it changed this. It says this prompt requires a value between September 30, 2011 and September 30, 2023. So based on my end date here, it tells me how far back I could go. I do not foresee any report I would run that goes back for 12 years, usually 1, maybe 3 fiscal years. Depending on your specific needs, you may want to go back 5, but usually 3 years is a good rule of thumb. For the purposes of getting a report quickly, I will just do 1 fiscal year because I don't want to for this to take any longer than necessary. Right? Then we'll scroll down, and as I scroll down, the menu here moves with me. So I'm ignoring the modifications altogether. And here's the attributes. So I will show you how I picked the ones that I did. So for those following along, thank you for keeping me on my toes. So business size selection, double click, and it shows these little green attributes that are allowable or that are within this folder. So I'm going to click on contracting officer's business size determination. So I could either double click on it and it pops over into my selected. And the other way I could do it is, well, if I decide I don't want it anymore, I click on it and then I hit the little left arrow, moves it to the left. Or I could do, again, small business size determination, click on the right arrow, moves it to the right. If you click on this one, it will move all of them, but I don't want to do that because I just care about that element. To choose all the other folders, you go up. So hit the little arrow folder with an arrow in it. And then you could click on all of these. You could explore it at your leisure. I'm going to select some that I know will pique your interest, or that I hope will pique your interest. So extent. Oh, and if it includes a code and a description, pick the description, it'll be more, well, descriptive, because you probably don't know the codes automatically, and the description is just easier to follow. So number of, let's see, what else do I want? Type of set aside, yes. We're done with this section. Contract dates. We want to know when it was signed. We also want to know the fiscal year. Well, not in this case, but if I were looking at more than one fiscal year worth of data, I may want to know the fiscal year, just because it's easy to analyze the data based on years. I also want to know the completion date, right? This is when this performance period expires, and then the estimated ultimate completion date is when all the options expire. This is the date that governs when the recompete needs to be in place. So if the estimate completion date for the landscaping contract I want is April 1st, that means the government is going to have a new contract in place by April 1st, or else the grass is going to overgrow, which means that if you step backwards, if the award needs to happen on April 1st, that means the solicitation is going to have to go out a few months in advance, which means market research has to happen before then. And you could start to base your business development, your marketing strategy, based on that time between the award date and when you think the government needs to start finding out and doing its market research and publishing its solicitations. So a little bit of a digression, but I think it's a good one. So the, let's see, I'm skipping through a couple of them, but I want to highlight them. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Anna, someone asked if you may be able to go just a little bit slower so they can follow along.
Sure. Yes. Okay, let's do that. All right. So contract identification. That is the information about that contract, all the numbers, right? The procurement instrument ID or contract number. If you really want to know the contract numbers, include that. If you're looking at aggregate agency spend and you don't really need the contract numbers, don't put them in, because the more specific the information that you're seeking, the more line items you're going to get. The more incremental the data, which could be really useful, but it also could give you a huge spreadsheet that has so much information that you don't know what to do with, and it'll be a little bit overwhelming. So in the interest of our time today, I'm not going to include the procurement instrument ID or contract number. The other information here is IDV. That's the indefinite delivery vehicle. So for example, if there is an award of a task order using a larger contract, using an IDIQ, or an award of a contract, for example, using a GSA schedule contract, that overarching contract, GSA schedule, NASA SUP, IDIQ, will be the IDV. Solicitation number, if that matters to you, sometimes that's useful. If, for example, you want to submit a FOIA request or research past awards or past solicitations, you may want to know what the solicitation numbers are. Department and agency information. I'm scrolling down a little bit. So there's two places where you're looking for department and agency information. The first one, that's your contracting. So this is where the contract paperwork happened. This is who issued the requirements. Not necessarily who has the funding. Sometimes they will be the same, sometimes not. You may want to get this information, get all the contracting information, and then also the funding information, and compare and contrast to see if they are the same entity or not. So I'm not going to pick contracting information. Again, I'm trying to keep this short, my report short, but I do want to explain what the potential contributors here are. Some of it is not that relevant, so I'm skipping it in the interest of kind of giving you the meat here and not too many squirrels. Funding sources. So this is who has the funding. This is your end customer. So you may want to have the department, agency, and office name. Office name is the most important one, the most valuable one. Then granular level, probably not going to get too much because it's granular. Sometimes it's reserved for specific agency use, so even I don't have access to it. I'm logged in with my government's login, and it still has this little lock thing. Legislative mandates, if you care, if things like Service Contract Act, Davis-Bacon Act apply to your work, you may want to know if there's any legislative mandates that are applicable to this contract. Place of performance, where the work is being done. You may want to know where the work is with respect to country, a zip code, a state, if it's relevant to you. A product or service information. So to the person that asked about the specifics of a requirement, this is as good as you're going to get, and it's not great. Description of requirement is as much narrative as you're going to see. Sometimes it'll be very terse, very brief. Sometimes it'll be a paragraph, but this is as much as is possible. If you're looking for more description than that, looking at past contract documents on SAM, or possibly even submitting a FOIA request to the agency would be the way to get something more detailed, like a statement of work or performance work statement for a contract. So description of requirement will be a narrative. So I'm not including it here because it's, well, actually, we could include it here. If we have time, we could delve into the spreadsheet information. Okay. Also important things or useful things with this section is the NAICS code and NAICS description if you'd like, and then product code and product service description. Right. The other ones, I'm pausing before the vendor information. Transaction information, this you may or may not be able to get, but if you're looking for the name or email address of a contracting person that touched this contract, you see where it says prepared by, last modified by, approved by. You may or may not be able to get the names of people. Sometimes I've gotten it as using a non-government account. Sometimes it hasn't been made available. So see what your login says, if you're able to get this information or not. There is another way to get that using FPDS, and we could talk about that if we have time. I think there will be an FPDS training later on next couple of months. Right, so I digress here. The small business information or the vendor information. So there's two fields that talk about vendor information. And sorry, I skipped down too much. There are this vendor specific, such as the vendor's name, their location, their UEI number, everything about a particular company, including their doing business as name, their parent name, legal business name is the default one. And then the vendor socioeconomic data, that is not small business, but not just small business. So these are, think of these as yes or no columns. So this will be, for example, 8A program participant, right? So if I select that one, the column will say, is vendor business type 8A program participant, and it will have Y or N. So if a company is yes, then it'll say Y. If it's not 8A, it'll say N. And there are 95 of these criteria. And it includes all the socioeconomic categories, but also, as you could see, many other categories that we don't use in FAR-based contracts, but are used in grants and are used for some other situations and in other type of reporting. So that is our report, or those are the criteria or the attributes that I've selected. Going to pick dollars obligated and the number of actions as my metrics. And before we get to the attributes, let me check with Wendy and Curtis if you have if there's any other questions.
No questions right now, Anna.
All right, thank you.
Well,
so what we're going to do here is I'm going to take out the funding office name because it could be really weird and not useful. And I'll show you how to do the qualifications using the department information. So we're going to look for funding sources, click on the arrow, and let's say I only want awards where the funding department is Department of Veterans Affairs. So I'm going to double click on department name, and you see where it says qualify and form. So if I leave it as qualify, if this is basically the blue one is selected, right? We are choosing to qualify it. Then it gives me a form to fill out, which is an ID, and I have to type it in. It's going to equal, and I have to put in a value. Well, I don't want to do that because it could be Department of Veterans Affairs. It could be U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. It could be Veterans Affairs, Department of. So that's too many variables. I don't want to do that. I'm going to cancel that. Instead of qualifying it, I'm going to start over. So, you know what? This is too hard. I'm going to hit X. And let's try it again. Funding department name. We're going to, instead of qualify, going to select. And now we get to select in the list. Now the list is empty. That's okay. Here's the list. So the drop-down menu, or the scrolling menu here, goes through 153 different selections. I could either go alphabetically, or if I don't have any patience, I could type in veteran, hit search, and it's going to come up with Veterans Affairs Department of. So I'm going to double click. And don't forget to hit OK. There have been many times where I canceled and it undid all of that. So I'm going to hit OK. So now I'm only looking at these set of data with Department of Veterans Affairs. Let's do another one. So let's say I only want where vendor socioeconomic is, and I haven't shown you this. So instead of scrolling through, if I just want everything that's a hub zone business, to do hub zone, and I'm going to hit the little search button, and it's going to find everything that says, why didn't it work? Hub zone. Search. Loading. Huh. All right. Well, that did not work for me as I promised. So, don't know why. This vendor type. Okay, that is weird. That's all right. Let's try this small. Not going to risk it again. I'm going to, is vendor type, let's do, hub zone firm. So you can double click on it. Now, is vendor type hub zone firm? Now, this could be yes or no, or true or false. So you could put in a value, but I'm not sure how they're going to define it. So I'm going to do, again, instead of qualify, I want to select and let the system dictate me based on the criteria they already have that I only want hub zone firms. So yes, double click, hit OK. So now VA awards to hub zone firms. So, okay. So, the report is going to give me the columns associated with vendors that are hub zones in Veterans Affairs. All right. So I'm not going to qualify by the dollars here, and I'm going to say hub zone VA FY 2023. Going to save it. And because I took a really long time to come up with the report, it's going to give me an error. And sorry?
I'm sorry, hey, and I ain't mean to interrupt. A couple of people was asking you to slow down just a little bit, and could you repeat the steps that you just finished doing, if you don't have time?
Okay, sure, yes. So I will have to go back through the steps again because I took too long in putting together the report. So it's asking me to either continue, which will blank everything out, or it will reprompt me, which means go back and fix it. So I'm going to choose to reprompt. It will bring me back to the same report. And it will, oh, no, okay, there we go. It saved all of my information here, right? So I scroll back to the bottom. So Curtis, just to confirm, somebody wanted me to show how to qualify again, or the save part?
Qualify.
All right. Okay, so let's do this again. So we're going to pick on product or service information. No, let's do principal place of performance. Let's say I only want awards that are in the country of Germany. So no, actually I don't. Country code of US, because hub zone VA is probably not going to be overseas, and I don't want null results. So principal place of, you know what, let's do it by state code. So
I might ask, could you do it by product service?
product cert, okay. All right, we're gonna run out of time. So I'm gonna do it this way. And I will ask you to do the same for the other one, for the other criteria that you would like to see. So I'm going to select qualify and pick select. And then in the list, it'll be, oops, I don't know what I picked Level's location name. You know what? All right, since I messed that up anyway, let's do product. So product or service information. We're gonna pick NAICS code, qualify, select, list empty, and here's the NAICS code. Now what you can also do is, let's say you want everything that's IT 541, search. So I'm waffling between going through a lot of information quickly or less information slowly, and you guys are asking for both, which is making me have to make some very tough choices. So let's say I want 541420, double click, and I want 541430, and why not this one? Okay, hit OK. So now I could choose, or now I'm filtering for everything that is in either one of those NAICS codes that is a hub zone firm in the Department of Veterans Affairs. And it's asking me, it is selected for all selections, so all of these have to be true. If I did any selection, it means if any of those are true, which is a whole different set of results. So all selections. For example, if you wanted, you wouldn't have as many criteria, but if you wanted only Veterans Affairs or Department of Defense, you can do it that way. All right, so I'm gonna save this. Since I took less time, hopefully, yes, it works. So this is what happens if it works. So I'm saving this report as Hub Zone VA 2023. I would have put in the NAICS codes if I remembered them, or you could put them in the description. I'm gonna hit OK. and I could run this report. Now, when you click to run the report, it will bring you right back to these same criteria. Do not worry, that's what it's intended to do. And you could either scroll back down, make sure you still like it, or you could just go to the bottom left here and hit run report. And it will bring up the data set. Now, what we're going to do, and I'm not going to go back to the PowerPoint, but I'll show you right on this report screen, is there are a couple of different options here. You could get some analytics here. You could see graphs. You could print it. You could email it. You could schedule delivery to history list. I have never done that. You could export it to a spreadsheet or a PDF. Spreadsheet is what I've worked with most commonly. You could also change and edit this report as needed. Usually I hide this. So this is this would come up with a spreadsheet. And as you see, all of the criteria that we had selected are listed here as columns for this report. Including the dollars, obligations, and the number of actions. So here's the description of requirement for the person that asked, just so you could get an idea of what kind of information is in here. And sometimes it is brand name, sometimes it is specific, sometimes it is, actually, these are pretty specific, I have to say. Some of them would be, okay, like this one, exercise option period 2. No idea what that is. All right. Okay, let's see. So the only other thing I want to show you is, now could use the back arrows of the reporting tool itself, or of SAM. If I go back, I could keep going back, or I could go to my reports, which is what I want to show you. And now, where is it? HubZone VA. So this is the current report. I could choose to run it again, or I could choose to do all of these things, including export it right from here. If I choose to run it, if I click on it, it's going to bring me back to the same criteria. And let's say I want to go back to 2021. And I'm going to run this report again. If I choose to save it, because it is a different report, right? I'm going back farther years. I have to either save it, which will overwrite it, or I save as, and it will be 2020, 23. And now I have created a second report based on pretty much pre-populated one. And as you could see, you could have multiple different ways to go with it. For example, that was a HubZone report. You could do it with women-owned small business, or if you ran one for VA, you could do one for Department of Education, for example. So that is the ad hoc report. I can stay a little bit beyond the time for questions. So Curtis, Wendy, what do we have?
I don't see no question in the Q&A right now.
Right.
And
Thank you.
when will this be on YouTube? This recording will be on YouTube by tomorrow morning.
Let me see what's in the chat.
Somebody asked, what does keep report prompted mean in the save window?
Keep report.
I don't see that. I can't.
Oh. Hold on. I'm gonna go to save.
Keep report.
I don't see that. It's an odd one.
Yes. Then somebody asked the award amount. Where can I find it?
The award amount. So that is, we talked about several dollar or several columns or attributes indicating funding. So let's go back. look at the report criteria. So these are the metrics here. So I'm going to uncheck them all so they're all in the same. So the dollars obligated is at the time of that this transaction is being reported, how much money is being obligated. As some of them, it's a payment, some of them is the award, some of them is the obligation, some of them is a change with no dollars. The ceiling value, that's base and all options. Sometimes it is correct, sometimes it is not. My recommendation is to look at all of the incremental line items pertaining to a contract. This is when you would want to have the procurement instrument ID or the contract number and add them up. But if the contracting officer did it correctly, the base and all options value would be the ceiling value, the maximum total value of that contract. Depending on the type of contract, you don't always reach the ceiling, but it's a good indicator. And I see a question in the chat. Ooh, there's a lot. All right, so I'm going from bottom up. You can obtain a previously awarded winning proposal by a FOIA request. No, you cannot. You can obtain government documents, but not proposals. And you cannot obtain line item pricing. So a FOIA request will get you government's documents, statements of work, contract awarded, any portions of the proposal that are incorporated into a contract, but you will see some redactions for like labor rates, for example, or any proprietary information.
We answered all the rest of the questions on up, Anna.
Right.
A question came in and said I was unable to see the screen on your first step, going from the home page to the report page. I need to see how you got that.
Okay, from the home page. All right, so let me do that. And while I'm doing that, I will answer the extent competed means what kind of competition it was. So I recommend a really good data dictionary is on usaspending.gov. And it I think it appears on the right-hand side, and you could also see it in the footnotes. But extent competed is, for example, full and open or full and open after exclusion of sources, which is small business set aside. It could be SAP, simplified acquisitions process. So it's the kind of competition that the government had to get to this award. Apparently I cannot talk and scroll at the same time. So, all right, it will go back to sam.gov. So from home, we go to data bank, click on ad hoc, and then award information report, award, yep. And then create new report, report builder. That's how we got to the build part. How can I request a freedom of information from the agency? Each agency's main page will have a FOIA address. You could also Google, for example, Veterans Affairs FOIA, something like that. They're all by email. It should be pretty easy to find that and request it. How do I filter the report to just a few nicks? All right, let's do the filter again. So we're going to let's see, product or service information, right? So we are on qualify. Qualify means filter. Product or service information, down arrow, NAICS code, double click. Instead of qualify, we want to select in the list, which is now empty, but we're going to click on the red list and all the NAICS come up. So we're going to select a couple. I'm just doing this randomly because I think have to do with agriculture. And click OK. And we're only going to get results that match these NAICS codes. And then if you see this video again, you'll be able to follow along and play it back as many times as necessary. Okay, saving the report. Okay, so I need to business size selection. I can't save one just with NAICS codes, right? And 2022, 30, 2023. All right, and then save the report. And ag mix 2023. Okay, that was it. Oh, okay. Keep report prompted. I see what you mean. Darn it. I made my own error. You know what? I don't know what that means. I'll see if I could find that out. I think, I think what it means is that, remember how in order to run a report, I had to save it first, and then it brings me back to it. I think that's what that function is that it goes back to those same prompts to select the report before you could run it again. And since I screwed up my SAM, I will see if I could go back to this. Okay. All right. Is there a documentation on the attribute filter tree? There is documentation on the ad hoc reports. Somewhere in here. Somewhere in the SAM help files, it will have all of the reports here. So managing my entity registration and reporting using data services. Yeah, so it will have under the data services, I believe it will have that information. All right. All right. Any other questions?
Sure, it's two more questions in the Q&A box, and
okay.
One is, do sources sought retain the notification number when it transitions to a solicitation?
I have to say sometimes. It usually doesn't. Sometimes it does, but usually doesn't. What I'll give you a tip. It is usually the same contracting office point of contact, so you could search by their name or email address, and chances are all the recent stuff will come up. Sometimes it's faster than by numbers.
I'm sorry, you were still answering?
No, sir. Next question.
You're welcome. Does the data bank information will also have the information from DIBSS DLA database as well?
It depends on the value of those DIBS purchases. If it's under the micro purchase threshold, I do not think they need to bring it into the contract action report, so I don't think it will. But that's a better question for DLA to confirm how and what they have to report to SAM. The DLA Small Business Office might have that info. Good question.
You're welcome. That's all on our end, Anna.
All right. All righty. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope you were able to navigate along. And if not, please let me know if you have any challenges in repeating this, recreating this for yourselves. Have a great day, everybody. See you next time.